Don't say it. 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 That's not going anywhere. Da! Hey guys, welcome to Z's Bees. It's been a little while. I haven't even started working with the bees yet, but down here the mosquitoes are really bad, so I decided to put the veil on. Today we got a lot of work. I haven't done a video in a while, really since the honey extraction with the whole bunch. So everything is kind of coming to an end. I know it's still theoretically summer, but as far as in the bee world, they're starting to prepare for winter. So the last of the goldenrod is kind of coming down to an end. And so the bees that the queen is laying right now are going to be the bees that are going to overwinter. So most of the bees that we'll see in the hive today, those bees will live for about 40 days. The bees that the queen is laying currently are the ones that are going to overwinter, and they'll live anywhere from 4 to 6 months. So they'll be the ones that will make it all the way to the spring. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to be removing the honey supers, and we'll take a look at how much honey is in there, and then we'll use the fume board for that, and that's one of the things that I built here. So this is a fume board. I took some galvanized flashing, just spray painted it on top, made a frame for it just out of pine. I think this is 2 inches here, and then on the inside I stapled some black felt. We'll spray some of the, I have 2 different kinds. This is Fisher's Bee Quick. It's just it's a fume board, so it starts to fume. This is an odor that they really don't like. It doesn't harm them at all, but it'll push them. I'll put that on top, it'll push them down. Same thing that we did when we extracted honey the first time. So that's one of the things that I made, saved a little money on that. And then after, one of the things that actually this is new too, this is kind of a combination between a normal hive tool, and then it also has the J hook on it to get into the frame, so it's all in one. So we'll see how that works today. The other thing that I've been doing, I've been busy, is I wanted to switch over to bucket feeding. So I will feed them to try and again get that queen to lay as much brood as possible. I'll be feeding it 2-to-1 sugar water, so that is by weight. So when I mixed it up, it was 10 pounds of water to 20 pounds of sugar. And I have a video on that. You have to heat the water up almost to a boiling point in order to mix it to that consistency. So I'll show you, but these are the feeder boards that I made. Created a cut. I did a dado cut on the rim, and so what it gives is a 1/4 inch of the bee space, some ventilation. This goes on top, and then I'll put the bucket on top, and I'll show you how that's going to work. It's gonna, if you remember the previous ones that I made, I just had 2 mason jars. That was 2 quarts. With a bucket, I can either go with a 2 gallon, but the ones that I have right now are a 1 gallon, which will end up being about 4.5 quarts on there. So it's gonna save me a lot of time. Again, I made these out of pine. It's the solid pine. I was able to splice in some wood here, and again, saved a bunch of money by doing that. Made a couple of these here. So underneath, these vent holes are screened off so that the bees don't come up. The bees will come up through here. They'll be able to eat. This will also be nice if it gets real cold. They can cluster underneath there and still come up and eat. So with that said, what Matt and I are going to do today is we're going to start off, take the straps off, spray the fume boards. I have 2 of them, so we'll start it on here. We'll push them down. We'll take them off. We'll come over to where we have to go up the hill. We'll use a leaf blower, and we'll blow off the remaining bees after checking for the queen, because again, I don't have a queen excluder. We'll bring them up, we'll store them, we'll put the feeder boards on, and we'll film throughout. So thank you. Okay, so what we're gonna do here, I took the lid off. We're just gonna smoke them down a little bit. I've already sprayed my fume board. Got my new hive tool here. We'll take, you can hear the propolis with these colder nights are really starting to lock down their hive and prevent any sort of gaps and seams that they don't want. Whoop. So now I've sprayed this fume board. Matt, if you want to get real close to it, you can kind of hear it. I don't know if you'll be able to hear it or not, but they're going to start to get a little bit more upset here. Okay, so we brought up 2 frames. We're down to the brood chamber. I just want to take a look inside to see that there is still some brood. Everything is pretty sticky, and that's what the propolis. If you look around this edge here, that's this stuff here. They get that from tree saps, and that's what they essentially glue the hive together with. In the winter, they can block any kind of drafts and whatnot. A wild colony will actually, if they have a big hole in a tree that they go, they'll actually close it down to the size that they want using that. So let me just take a look real quick. I can see some honey in here, and they're kind of extended, so I don't want to go too much into the brood chamber and disturb them too much because we're kind of messing with them quite a bit. I just want to see enough to make sure that there is a laying queen in there. And they're kind of getting upset. They're making some pretty heavy, kind of like, it sounds like an engine revving. Okay, so what I'm seeing here is no brood whatsoever. So that's a bit of a concern, but on the next frame I see it. So that's good. We just put this in here. I'm actually gonna close this hive up here shortly. They're starting to kind of get real upset. We just took their honey supers away. We're using fume boards and stuff like that. But what I saw in there, I'm not gonna take it out, is that there is still some brood. Now, I want to make sure that when I am putting the feed on here, that I'm also probably going to give them a pollen patty, and that's going to cause the queen to prompt her to lay a little bit more. So they're still looking good. They still have a laying queen in there. Okay, so we have 2 hives done. We have them down in the brood chambers. We have the feed on there. I'll show you exactly how that works. But Matt, if you want, actually, I'll show you right now. So this is still just that ventilated top. Come over the top. The bucket is here with that hole. They'll be able to come up and feed in there. And I feel a little vibrating in my glove. I don't think I have a bee in there, but I don't know. And then they'll feed. This will be on there because it still provides that ventilation. So that if there is cold mornings, the condensation doesn't build up. And especially when it gets really cold out with having all that. So we did that with 2. If you want to come over here, Matt, just watch out for some of the stuff. We're going to open this up. This is the fume board. It hasn't been as effective as when we initially harvested, but it should, yeah, actually it's a little bit better. You can see a couple of them are stored on there. They really don't like it. They pushed it down. We'll take a look and see what we're dealing with in this hive. If you guys have been following from the start, you know that this was the hive that swarmed. The one next to me right there is the actual swarm. So this hive requeened themselves. Let's see what we're looking at for honey here. I can smell honey. And look at the difference. That is goldenrod honey. If you remember, I had the real white cappings. So we'll take that out. We're going to decide what we're going to do with it. I may end up giving it back, but I'm also going to treat for, I'm going to test for mites first. Presumably there's going to be a little bit of a mite load. We'll treat for them. And you don't want to treat for mites when you have honey on them, whether it's for the bees or not, because it can get in the wax and all the different medications. So with that said, most of the bees, or I should say a lot of the bees, there's still quite a few, are out. We'll take this off. We'll put their feed on. But you can see that they did bring in quite a bit of the goldenrod. The last of the brood comb appears to be hatching. Queen is not up there. That's my biggest concern. But it's gonna be really interesting to sneak a taste of what the goldenrod honey tastes like. This frame over here looks like it's really, really full of it. And there's a lot of people that don't harvest their honey until Labor Day weekend. But you can see a little bit of the difference. Again, right down here. Matt, if you want to come over real close. You see some of the drones right here. I don't know if those are dead or if they are still hatching out. I don't see much movement, but it looks like they're starting to hatch out. I always look for the queen and stuff like that, but you see their faces buried in there. And then of course all that is the capped honey. So I'm satisfied with this one. I don't see any eggs whatsoever. So we're gonna take this one off. We'll finish it off by using the leaf blower. We'll blow it out, we'll put it up there. I'll decide if I want to extract a little bit more of the honey. I also want to have enough to feed them, but a lot of the feed that I'm going to put on there is going to supplement them. They're going to get enough feed in their brood boxes to where the queen isn't going to lay as much, so they'll backfill that with some of the sugar syrup, and they'll be good to go through winter. Okay, so excuse me, I just smoked the bees and I inhaled a little bit of that. We're going to put the feed board on. This is kind of similar to what commercial beekeepers use, but I modified it a little bit, and I have some ventilation holes. So ventilation holes, I put some screen over it so they can't get through. I have a hole here that they'll come up through and they'll feed. So now that they're off, we have a lot of bees flying around. Have the 2 brood chambers down there. This goes on like so. Try not to squish too many. I did get a drone over there, but they're about getting ready to get kicked out of their hives anyways. That goes like that. I then have this 1 gallon bucket. It's filled to the top with 2-to-1 sugar syrup. There's a gasket on there, and this is food grade plastic as well. There's a screen on here. When I invert it, just like in the mason jar, it's going to create a suction, and it's not going to free flow. The bees will be able to kind of dab at it, and they'll be able to get it out. So you'll see here, I try to do this over so that I'm not attracting a bunch of ants. So it'll flow out, and it'll stop. Then you bring this, set it over the hole. I got some on my gloves, so the bees are like that. That's good to go. Now, like in a commercial setting, a lot of times they'll just leave the buckets just as is. They don't have the time, or they don't want to waste boxes on it. A lot of their things are about efficiency. What can happen when doing this is if you have a big fluctuation in temperatures, you can actually have the expansion and it'll flood your hive. Strong hives can take care of that. Other hives, it can be detrimental to them. One way to mitigate that is to put a box on it, kind of keep that temperature regulation that's there. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to step off the camera just real quick. I have a deep box here. I'll put this on. We'll get those bees out of there because otherwise they'll get trapped in. So that goes on just like that. Now, if I put the top cover just on this, we're going to create kind of that seal. So I have this, again, vented hive cover that'll go on here. It also has these notches. That goes on. We'll take the top cover. This sits on here, and we're all set. I'll come back here probably in a day or two. I'm going to do a mite check. I also want to put down a pollen patty. I want to make sure that the queen still has enough to lay some fall brood. Again, that's the brood that's going to get them over winter. So now we have quite a bit of work. We have a lot of bees up there. I'm going to let them rob out some of the not so capped honey. Once that's done, we'll store those in the freezer, and we'll videotape every part of it. So thanks for watching. All right, so we're completed. I'll just take you out here and I'll kind of show you what's all going on. I think we elicited almost like a either a feeding frenzy or even like a partial swarm. So we had initially brought all those boxes, the honey supers, up over here by my swarm trap. If you remember, I sprayed that swarm commander, which has a bunch of pheromones in there of a queen. So a lot of the bees that are still flying around here are in and out of that box. I don't believe that there is a queen in there. We double checked. And then a lot of them are over here, but I think it's more of almost like a feeding frenzy that we kind of elicited some robbing. So what I ended up doing, instead of leaving the hives out, I'm sorry, the honey supers out, is we took them, we blew out all the bees, and then I'm gonna let things kind of calm down a little bit. And I have the ones that are not fully capped over right here. I'm gonna do a little bit more research as to how to either let them rob it out or store them. Then I have 2 of them that are not drawn out and there's no honey stored, so I'll be able to just put those away, store those properly. Then I have a box over here that I'm gonna be able to harvest. So those of you that didn't get a bit of the honey from the first batch, I should probably get about maybe 20, 30 pounds out of that. All right, I'll show you. This is where I want to build some stairs because this is my route going down to my hives. It's a little treacherous. You see I have my little makeshift logs and sticks that I use. So we come down here, And this is actually where a creek used to run, but they moved it back in the, I believe, the 60s. So then I come through, go around. Over there's a big business. And then we're into the little valley area here. And here are my hives. You see I have them all set up with the feeder boards on there. I'll see what they look like in front. I wouldn't be surprised. Yep. If there is some bearding going on, because we just smushed them down, but they will figure it out. So lots of bees on there. That's not uncommon. This hive here, their population wasn't as strong in there, so we'll see what ends up happening. But a lot of those bees would die anyways because they are not the winter bees. So that was a task that I was kind of intimidated by for a while because there's a lot of moving parts. It wasn't that hard, but we got it done. Now it's going to be a matter of managing those honey supers, appropriately storing them, and then regulating feeding and pollen patties in order to build their population up for a strong winter colony.